The preparedness for working put him simultaneously in the right frame of mind for creating. That collectedness and presence of mind, the right frame of mind for the artist, is only reached when the preparing and the creating, the technical and the artistic, the material and the spiritual, the project and the object, flow together without a break. Eugen Herrigel. Welcome to the Lost Traveler podcast. I am your ever-loving host, Henry Cameron Allen, and I'm very excited today to meet a new friend. He is from Austria, and he now lives in the UK. His name is Vinny Sturgeon, and he is a ukulele artist and inventor of the mindful ukulele method. And I know I'm saying it wrong. It's ukulele. But anyway, thank you for being here. I'm so excited to talk with you.
Awesome. It's a pleasure to be here.
So where in Austria did you originate from?
I grew up in the Austrian mountains. So do you know Innsbruck is in the west of the country? They had
I
some
do.
Olympic games there.
Yeah.
And that's why a lot of people know it. It's very picturesque and beautiful. Mountains, rivers. It's the same as in The Sound of Music, which I never saw. But everyone
What? Okay, if we ever meet in person, we're gonna sit down and we're gonna watch that movie.
I don't want to see it. I think I want to
No?
keep it like that. It's the older I get, the funnier it is that I haven't seen it because people always talk about it.
Oh, that's true. Well, so yeah, and you liked it. So it's your I can't imagine it's your life story, but you didn't grow up in a convent, did you?
No, I didn't.
Okay, good.
But it's like I come from a little place. It's like a small town, quite protected and beautiful,
Yeah.
and yeah. So I had a lot of nature, lots of spending time in the mountains, and that sort of vibe.
Yeah, in my early childhood, I lived just outside of Vienna.
Really amazing.
Yeah, a little suburb wine village called Grinsing.
Funny.
And I have very fond memories of Austria. And I remember going to that part of the country and even as a child, I was just, taken aback by how amazingly beautiful it is. And the people were all very kind. And I remember going to the salt mines in
Yes, yeah, that's a big
Salzburg,
thing there, yeah.
putting on a little fez and a little clothing.
Because your dad used to be a diplomat, right?
He was a cultural diplomat. So this was at a time before there was even a McDonald's outside the US. And so
What?
I
No
know
McDonald's?
there was a time. But he worked for an agency that no longer exists. It was called the USIA, the US Information Agency. And it was kind of the propaganda wing of the US government in the 50s, 60s, 70s. And so it was his job as a director to produce these huge expos of American culture, in quotes, or culture with a K, which is a lot of appropriated culture, to be fair. And they wrapped it up in a big shiny red, white, and blue ribbon and sold it back to the world as American. And we did it better than you did. So buy it back from us, your culture. So it was, it was a fascinating way to grow up. I got to see the world. I got to really be immersed in other cultures, other languages.
And how long did you live in Austria then for?
We were there, I believe, 2 years.
Okay. Do you still remember any German?
9. No, that's about it. I've tried over the years to reclaim some of it. I used to speak Russian as well, but I did hang on to my Portuguese and Spanish, so that's good for being where I am.
Yeah.
Right near the border of Portugal in southern Spain. So, but anyway, I loved growing up that way, and I've always had an international sensibility, circle of friends. I've kept in touch with friends from my childhood, growing up in the international schools,
Yeah,
and
that's cool. Yeah.
yeah, So my first thought when you were talking about describing it and remembering how beautiful that part of Austria is, what was your impulse to leave? What was that turning point moment that said, I got to get out of here?
That's a good question. For me, I've always been a very curious spirit, and I always wanted to explore. I was always interested in people, making connections. And where I grew up, it's sort of monoculture, so there's not a
Yeah.
lot of variety. Um, and I was always looking for, yeah, I want to explore more. I want to get to know more thought schools. I was always interested in just things that were different. And then at some point, I mean, I went to, from my little town, I went to the bigger town, which is Innsbruck. And then in Austria, we have a military service, which is still mandatory.
Oh, is
And
it?
and I did an alternative to that. So lots of people do some kind of social service, working in a senior residence or something like that.
Mm.
And I went to work for human rights organizations in Amsterdam and Los Angeles. In
Wow.
Amsterdam, it was for a pan-European peace network called United for Intercultural Action. And I also went to Los Angeles and worked for a Holocaust museum there in the Simon Wiesenthal Center. It's like a big Jewish institution, and it has the Museum of Tolerance, which is a
Wow.
big, amazing place there, where I was educating kids or talking with kids about the power of words and history. And from there, like that kind of opened my mind. I was around 20, and I just enjoyed meeting many people from all walks of life. Then I went back to Austria, and I wanted to always study music. I always thought of Los Angeles. Oh, that's the place to be, but it was too crazy.
Oh man.
It's
Okay.
a weird place,
Yeah,
and it's like a lot of America. It's so amazing, but so crazy at the same time. It's a fascinating country.
I think, yeah, it is. I mean, I didn't grow up there, so I don't feel, even though my passport is American, I don't feel
Uh-huh.
American. And it's very funny in the tiny village that I live in Spain, only 700 people, so everybody. And they call me El Americano, I'm the only one
Yeah.
here. It's actually quite an international village. We have a guy from Austria. We have
Ah, really?
a lot of Brits. We have South Africa, Germany, South America, a lot of Brazilians here, Colombians, Bolivians,
Interesting. Cool.
even a family from Thailand. So it's, for being such a tiny remote place, it's quite international, which makes me feel right at home. I never felt at home in America.
Yeah, yeah,
I
that's
felt like a
interesting.
fish out of water. And it
Uh-huh.
wasn't until coming back to Europe uh,
Uh-huh.
about 5 years ago. And I
Uh-huh.
hadn't been back since 1973. I'm dating
Oh, yeah. Oh,
myself, but
oh,
it was a long time ago. And it felt like coming home. It was part of my
yeah, I
family.
understand what you say. I mean, for me, it's like when the older I get, the more I appreciate Austria again. Because for me, it was okay. I thought everything is shit and traditions are shit, but
Yeah, yeah.
the more
Lederhosen. Oh, no.
yeah, I can't see any more lederhosen.
No.
But then as you sort of see the value in it of communities, and there's lots of very social things actually happening. I mean, it's a lot of it is around Catholic faith, which
Right, right.
sometimes makes it a bit more what's the word? It's quite strict rules, and there's a certain way how you live, and if you live a different way, it's no one can understand it.
Yeah.
But uh, it's still there are many good things in small communities. But then, like when I went back, I got a place in London on a university where I did my master's in music,
Hmm.
and then I just stayed there for the past 15 years now. and it's just London is like it's a big amazing place. There's I have many friends, and through my work as a musician, as an educator, I came into like I worked with people from all socioeconomic backgrounds. It's just it's very hard at times if you don't have a lot of work. It's a hard place to live, but
Yeah.
when everything works out, it's amazing, and you can reinvent yourself over and over again, which was I love.
A guy wire is a tensioned cable that is designed to enhance the stability of a freestanding structure. Think of me as your guy wire in terms of life skills mentoring. You're perfectly capable of standing stably on your own 2 feet, but I'm a cable that can enhance your stability. I'm available for individual or couples counseling, life skills mentorship, child loss grief support, LGBTQ plus support. I can also officiate weddings, end-of-life ceremonies, baby namings, invocations, or whatever guidance you may need. I serve all genders, all ages. Sessions are affordable, discreet, private, and conducted online. Find me at guy-wire.org. Book your appointment today. I love that too. It's we're kindred spirits in that sense. I really like, you know, we get stuck in a stagnant place, and we are not designed for that. We are not, you know, if we are designed, it is not about staying the same. And in my time, and I'm quite a bit older than you, I think. In my time, we had in schools, we had guidance counselors, and it was required to make an appointment. They would test you, and they would tell you, these are the things you must do in your life to be successful, right? You must be a pharmacist, or you must be a farmer, or you must be, you know, whatever. And I to this day, I can't remember what they told me I should be.
Yeah, what were you supposed to be? That's an interesting
I don't,
question.
I know, I don't remember, but you know, I remember family members telling me that I should be a writer. My father, who passed a couple of years ago from COVID, he always used to say, I don't care what you do, you could be a bricklayer, you know, which was, I guess, the lowest thing that he could think of. But, you know, as long as you make money and as long as you have a livelihood and are a good person, that's what he cares about. So I had
Good
that.
advice.
Yeah, I mean, I had that in one ear, and I had the rest of, you know, the shoulds in the other ear. But there was a really interesting turning point with my dad. And I want to talk about your parents too, because, you know, sometimes they inspire us in unexpected ways, is what I found. And I remember that my dad and I, when I was 17, 18, we weren't particularly close at that time. I don't know many people who are with their parent, because they're, you know, you're fighting within yourself. Who am I going to be? And don't tell me who I am, because I know who I am. You don't know me. And he was driving me to university. We were back in the States at that time. And the question that was burning in me was, does the career path that one chooses affect who they become as an adult? And I turned to my father and I asked him, I said, Dad, do you like what you do? And
what was it? Oh yeah, being a diplomat, yeah.
And he said, I loathe it. And I said, really? Well, that explained a lot to me about his character and his sort of, you know, inner angst. And I said, well, why do you do it if you hate it so much? And he said, well, son, that's the price you pay when you want your parents to be proud of you and you want to travel the world and have money in the bank and raise your family well. I said, oh, okay. I was thinking, wow, it takes selling your soul. Is that what you're telling me?
And did he also tell you what he'd rather have
Well,
done?
that was, the obvious progression in the conversation was, what did you want to be when you were my age or younger? And he had forgotten. And what's interesting is that I remember him as much older in that vision, that memory of the conversation, but he was only in his early 40s at that time.
Ah, that's fascinating. Yeah, I totally
And,
get what I got to say. Yeah.
and he had forgotten.
Hmm.
He was only in his early 40s and he had forgotten his dream.
Yeah.
And we drove along in silence for about 20 minutes, and then big tears started streaming down his cheeks. I had never seen my father cry. And I said, I'm sorry if I said something wrong. Are you okay? He said, no, no, it's all right. I said, what is it? What's the problem? He said, well, I just remembered. I wanted to be a photojournalist for National Geographic. And in my mind, I thought, damn, you could have done that. And your parents would have been so proud of you, and you would have traveled the world, had money in the bank, all the things that were a measure of success for him in his youth, he could have achieved had he followed that passion. And who knows, the passion might have changed later, but at least he would have. But I think the world looked very different in that time, in the 1940s and 50s.
Oh, yes.
It would have been the 50s. He
Hmm.
was born in 1939. So when you were growing up in your small village and growing up, I assume Catholic, yeah,
Hmm.
um, which I'm sure, and we can delve into that too, because I think there is progressive Catholic, and then there's somewhat repressive Catholic.
Oh,
There are
yes.
different schools of Catholicism. Um, but did you find, were you close with your family? Do you have siblings? And did you find inspiration in your parents? What line of work were they in?
Um,
Your biography.
yeah, so my dad, he's still around. He was a teacher in teaching economics, like in some higher education. And my mom was a stay-at-home mom. And I mean, my parents, they separated quite uh, early when I was around 10, 11.
Yeah.
And I always remember, I always was kind of a free spirit, even from a very young age. So I moved out when I was 15 just to do my own thing.
Well, I moved
Uh,
in when I was 13. I got moved. And my parents also split very early, which is interesting. I mean, I can I can
yeah,
I can relate to that.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, I have a brother and a sister, and music was always surrounding us. So I grew up in um, playing clarinet in a local brass band, like brass bands, Oompa Doompa bands is a
Yeah.
big thing there, and it's really nice. It's
Yeah.
loads of social occasions. There's always something going on, and um, but like I said, I was always kind of very free spirit from very early on. And when my parents separated, I had to do my own thing.
Yeah.
So even forced me. It was tough at the time. That was like a first big trauma in my life. But now thinking back, it made me who I am. Like I have a very
Mhm.
uh, I'm always having ideas that I'm pursuing. I'm quite entrepreneurial in my spirits, and that sort of allowed me to always, like, in comparison to your dad, I never had to fulfill anyone's
Expectation.
dreams, expectations about what they had. I always made my own things up, and for that, I'm very thankful. Like if I think about your dad, I mean, and loads of people live that life. There's
Still
this
they
is
do. Yeah.
this is what you gotta do, but only you yourself can. Uh, Only yourself know that, but it's hard. So sometimes when I say that, I think, okay, I don't have all the answers. I have no answers. I have just my own answers that work for me, but that doesn't necessarily mean it worked for someone else. Um, yeah, I forgot your
Are
question
you are
now.
you close? Was your mother a musician?
My mom was always making music, like not a professional
Yeah.
musician, but she was playing the zither. You know that it's like a stringed instrument with loads of strings, and you play it with your hands down like this.
Oh
It's like a
yes, yeah, a zither. Yeah, 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 yeah.
yeah,
Like an
it's
auto
a
harp, we call it as well.
yeah. And there's what is the famous tune from the Western? Da-ding, da-di-di-di-din.
It almost sounds like a harpsichord.
Yes, it does. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
quite hard plucks, but it's very beautiful.
beautiful.
She
I
was
love
always playing that, and my brother, he's a drummer. My sister, she plays the flute and the oboe. Uh, and I've always been like that. Then I started to play guitar. I started to found my first bands when I was 10, 11.
it.
I was singing in choirs, playing in orchestras. I toured a lot. I was earning my own money when I was 15, 16. I was playing in clubs where I wasn't allowed to be in as a banter, but we were the entertainment.
Yeah, yeah,
It
yeah.
was just and music was always a place of freedom for me, which is it's still today. It's a place where I could always go. It was always there.
Yeah.
Um, like a very protected, sacred thing. And the older I get, the more important it gets because it's always a place where I can go with everything else going on. The world seems to be falling apart, but I still always can go there and create and
Yeah.
be curious, explore, make stuff.
Are you tired of feeling run down? Do you wish there was a natural, non invasive, drug free way to improve your overall health and well being? If so, then let me introduce you to the Super Patch Company. Super Patches are a range of small neurotech patches that can help with a variety of issues, including sleep, immunity, pain mitigation, athletic performance, focus, anxiety, and stress. They're safe for everyone to use, and they're backed by a 30-day money-back guarantee. So what are you waiting for? Order your super patches today. Now available in the EU, UK, Turkey, Canada, and the US. If you're ready to take control of your health, you can find out more online at dianedinkmeyer.superpatch.com. Super Patches. There's a patch for that.
Well, and music is frequency, and
Yeah,
we respond to that because we are frequency as well, right?
that's a beautiful way of
Our
saying it. Yeah.
body, there's a vibration there, and art, art, I think, is the bridge to not only our humanity, but it's also the bridge to begin to understand the workings of everything we don't see around us, right? And
Yeah,
known and
exactly.
unknown universe. I've been delving into the quantum theories lately around, different topics. And as a musician, as a professional, 20 plus years, right?
Mhm.
Having traveled the world, having touched different people, different instruments, and different cultures, and all of that, do you find that there is a sort of a deeper meaning that your average person who has not had those experiences is able to tap into? Or is that
You
harder?
mean by doing music or by being a creative?
I think we are all human beings are inherently creative,
Yeah, true.
but you can lead a horse to water, and once you hear something often enough, uh,
Hmm.
the whole educational system was designed to get children away from that and into, well, in the Industrial Revolution, it was to get
Hmm.
children into factories, um, and now it's into the corporate world, into small cubicles where they're not relating to anyone else. And so music has always been a tradition, a human tradition of bringing people together, whether it's a drumming circle around a fire 10,000 years ago, or today with a symphony orchestra. It always brings people together and creates this amazing shared moment where we're all the same where all differences melt away and we just become enveloped and immersed.
I mean, and it's beautiful what you say, and it's 100% what I feel as well. For me, music and creativity is really this portal to it's almost a sacred, holy thing where we uh, start to understand things that don't make sense, and a lot of life in life doesn't make sense. Like life can be so cruel and weird and beautiful all at the same time, but it's hard to put it into words. And through any art or through being like engaging in creativity, you open this pool to another perspective, another way of seeing life, another way of it allows you to stop the noise. It allows you to gain new perspectives that you didn't have before. And even like when you say that people get molded into the corporate world, like with the mindful ukulele method, I work with loads of people who never had the opportunity to learn an instrument, or who just never got around to it because life got in the way.
Right.
But every single of them, when I start working with them, and it's all about raising their confidence that they can do it. And I just want to get them going to and engage in the creative act. And it's always beautiful to see how people then they just realize, okay, I can do that. Or everyone always told me I can't do that, or oh, I feel my body different. I'm getting into, I'm realizing my senses, because we do lots of breathing work, or I also meditate with my students, and then we learn songs. And it's something so close to, so I always want to bring people back to basics. Like you say, it's humans are in we are creative by default, be that in music, dance, business, parenting, whatever. It's what makes us human, right? And yeah, it's beautiful to see. And I like the past 5 years I also was working in a prison in Southeast London, where I worked with young offenders. I stopped doing that half a year ago, but that was also a transforming space for me to having been part of the music business for 15 years, where there's a lot of BS you have to deal with. It's a lot about marketing, and it's just part of the game. It's not when you're a creative, it's 10% of creating and 90% of trying to make it work somehow. But when I was in there, it was beautiful to see that people from totally different parts of society. I mean, I was very fortunate in my bringing up. I had all the opportunities, and then I meet someone who grew up in a council estate in London, who had tough childhoods, and then somehow ended up in prison. But we could sit down and instantly had a common thing we loved. That was like the power of music was for me, like I really rediscovered it again. I thought, okay, oh, this is amazing. We're speaking, I have a funny accent, but I can go in there, and then we both can do something creative together. It just opened up a whole new perspective for me, and we learned so much from each other, because those people are at the end of society. No one wants them, and in the real world those conversations don't happen. So I found that that really made me realize about the power and how creativity is one of the most important things for us as a society, as people.
And yet, what we're seeing across the world is that arts education is underfunded continually, right? And the focus on academic learning is at the forefront. I don't know if I mentioned, or perhaps you heard about it in one of my other podcast episodes, but my son was he sadly passed away from brain cancer.
I heard that. Yeah, I'm really sorry.
And he was a Waldorf student. He was Steiner schools, which I'm sure you're familiar with because
Yeah.
Steiner Austrian. But it's, you know, the arts are the cornerstone of that education. And what I saw over the years that I was involved in as an educator and an administrator in Waldorf schools, and what I saw in my son, that it elevated them to a completely different, whether it was music or whether it was storytelling, theater, visual arts, painting, you know, all handwork, things like that. I'm going to pause for just a second because somebody's at my door.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah, so you know, I think there's a great lack in our time that I think people like you are instrumental in keeping the fires, the sacred fires, stoked. Are most of your students younger or teens?
I have a local business which is just in my local community, and I have a cohort, small cohort. Some of them are very young kids from 8 to 11. That's mostly piano and guitar lessons. And for the mindful ukulele methods, it's mostly adults. Then they live all over the world. This program is more for people who are a bit older and they want to get more mindfulness in their life. They want to reduce their stress levels and want to do it in a fun way, which is my method. It's just a fun way of calming your mind by also learning an instrument. But it's a big mix of people. Locally, it's rather younger people, and online, it's people who work a lot mostly.
Hey, are you like me, always looking for ways to make a positive impact in the world? Well, then join me in sponsoring Desire Childcare Organization. We are a legally incorporated, fully volunteer-based organization in Uganda, committed to providing essential needs, holistic arts-based education, and a safe family environment to 33 vulnerable children, ages 2 to 14. Your monthly sponsorship can help improve the lives of these kids toward a better future. Desire Childcare is different from any other charity I know because, well, we have zero administrative overhead. Every penny goes to the kids. And we have a plan toward self-sufficiency through agriculture, so support is temporary. It's kind of like a leg up. Visit desirechildcare.org to learn more and get involved. Let's empower and inspire the Desire kids together. Thanks.
Now I have to ask you, as somebody who was useless in music growing up, and it's all tied to my experience in Austria. I must have been 7 or 8 years old, and I had a piano teacher, and her name was Madame Olga.
Whoa.
She was Russian.
I'm already scared.
Oh, she was so scary. She had a big black bouffant hairdo. She had enormous shelf breasts and was always dressed in black down to the floor. And she had a long stick that she would wrap on like this. She would wrap on the piano to keep time. And if I was playing with flat fingers, she would smack my knuckles with her stick and say, bend your fingers, bend your fingers. Oh my gosh. It was, I still remember this. Like, I haven't thought of this
I'm
Vinny,
sorry
in
to hear that.
years.
Yeah,
But
I'm
it's
sorry to
I
hear
feel
that.
like now I'm in therapy with you because because it was really traumatic. And one day she broke her stick, threw it over her wig, and said, "That's it, you're fired." She fired me from my own piano lessons. And
That's
so I
crazy.
never went back to music until I was about 10 or 11.
Uh-huh.
And I started learning guitar, but I really didn't like it. My fingers were cramping up. I don't know if it was just sort of this mental, physical body memory of the trauma of
Mm-hmm.
a few years prior, that, and plus the tips of my fingers were bleeding, and
Oh
I
my
just
God.
did not like that. I love softness and have a
I mean,
very
that's
sensual.
I totally feel that. So that sounds very traumatic. And if I think about my little students, it's so like I love, like, I have so much fun, and it's so pure uh, if you have a young person and they're discovering it, and you give them the room.
Yeah.
I'm just there to steer them, but for me, like, my philosophy or my own teaching method was always about making people do anything rather than nothing. And like, we do loads of writing songs, and kids are amazing at in coming up with weird little tunes, and they love that. And even for some of them, maybe if they're not that talented, for me it doesn't matter, because it's for them, having music and creativity in their lives, like in contrast to the experience you have, is a thing. It's a tool for the rest of their lives, and it helps you in your communication. It helps you to with relationships. It helps with so many things if you have a natural way of engaging in the arts. And even like your question, you're asking if someone thinks that, okay, I have no talent at all. That's one reason of why I chose the ukulele for this, for my online business. The ukulele, mindful ukulele method, is because the entry level is quite how do you say that, the threshold is quite low. It's a cheap instrument, and by the end of your first lesson you will play your first chords, so it's good in building confidence.
Yeah.
It's just an easy instrument to learn rather than another instrument.
Yeah, no, I've heard that. And I've wanted to.
You should get back to it.
I've ooh, and see, it's that should that creeps back in.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
It's interesting. After I turned 40, I started singing because I tried singing too when I was a kid, but everybody told me to shut up. Everyone at home, people did not encourage my singing. And I was at a piano bar with friends celebrating a birthday, and everyone was going around and singing a song in tribute to our friend. And it came around to me, and of course, I was like a transformer. All the armor came up, and I was like, "No, no, no, I don't sing." And they're like, "Come on, get over yourself." They put me up, and I can't even remember the song I sang. It was an out of body experience, but I sang something, and it was one of those pivotal turning point moments where the whole busy bar and restaurant became completely silent. Even the waiters stopped and listened. And then when I finished, it was like crickets. I mean, you could hear nothing. And you know if they loved it or hated it. Did I stun them with how horrible it was? And then the place erupted, and all my friends were like pie-eyed, saying, "Where did that come from? You always said you were a singer." I was like, "Well, I'm not." And they said, "Yes, you are, and you need to do this more often. We will come, hey, to come and hear you sing." So I just started playing out, and I pulled together a little combo, and I just started singing jazz mostly.
Cool. I
Something.
can see you sing because you have a very calming voice when you speak.
Oh, very kind. And I still, it was a real turning point for me, not only as I was heading into my autumn years, let's say, I'm working on a project right now I'm calling Agecation, because we don't really learn throughout our lives how to age well. And I think that's an essential
I
universal
love that.
life skill.
Oh, yes.
I'll send you a survey. In fact,
I'm interested
I
in
will
it.
put the survey, because I do like to reference books and other things we talk about, links in the description. And I'll put a link to that, because I think that as we age, people don't tell us we're allowed to find a new facet of our being. They don't
Exactly,
tell us
yeah.
that we're allowed to find a new talent that we didn't realize we had, or that we were, like in my case, we were told we didn't have, but we actually had. I had a different teacher at age 7 or 8, I might still be playing. I might be a virtuoso by now,
But
right?
it's exactly that, allowing yourself to uh, be like this curiosity that we have as kids it's so important. And I mean, that's a beautiful story. And with a couple of my students, I have similar moments, because they've always been told, no, you can't do that, you're not good enough. But once you get over that, and I mean, it's also a bit of a thing of our culture, with the perfect selfie culture, or there's an app for every bloody thing in your life that you need to
Oh man.
organize. And we don't allow ourselves to just explore in our own time, step by step, however long it takes. And if it takes 3 years, then it takes 3 years. For someone else, it might take 2 weeks, but it doesn't matter, because we're all on our individual journey. And celebrating that is so important, and art allows us to do that. It's the most important thing about art, to let ourselves discover new facets, discover things. Yeah, good story, like that.
Greetings, greetings, greetings. I'm Queen Bee Divine. The Cure is conversation. And where can you find me? At bluntreflections.com, where I will be talking to guests from around the world that not only share their time, but their insights and their tips on how they became the best version of who they were meant to be. So if you're looking for a great story and a great time, check me out at bluntreflections.com. The Cure is conversation. And remember, blase blase means to tell your story.
I expect that you find that in your work with adults. And I want to go deeper into that, because I'm really fascinated by your mindful ukulele method, because I think that it can open somebody up to, and they don't have to become a professional ukulele artist, but just, sit in your garden and pluck out a few notes to create those frequencies, to create those vibrations, not just for yourself, but anyone around you, even the plants and the animals around you are going to.
Yeah, I love that. Beautiful.
Right? I mean, one thing that I'm studying right now is telling you about, quantum theory, quantum mechanics, is entanglement theory, which is proven actually to be factual, that you can affect a molecule in the center of a star on the other side of the universe with a frequency. Just
because it's all interconnected, you mean?
It's all, yeah, it's the illusion of division, that everything is actually connected. And so this is through this journey, the last 4 years of this podcast, I have met so many people who I feel like I've known you forever. Where have you been all my life? And they feel the same. And we've stayed friends through this, conversation, which I certainly hope we will. But it's been a really fascinating exploration. And now, at the age that I am, I'm very intrigued with picking up an instrument and healing that part of myself, that tape, burning the old tape of Madame Olga in my head.
Olga, it's a great name.
I need to write a children's book about
yeah, it would be a good comic. Yeah,
I think it'd be brilliant. So tell me about your work with old geezers like me.
Yeah, it's literally like you said. It's a lot about just making people comfortable and showing them, hey, it's okay. We're now together here. This is a really cool thing. We're creating something together. Like I usually always start my sessions with some breathing exercises. I meditate with my students just to align our bodies with our minds, and that just gets you in a space. I mean, for people who are new to mindfulness, it's baby steps. At the beginning, it's literally okay. We're gonna take 5 breaths together, and that's it. But the longer someone learned, or my own mindfulness or meditation journey it's like 10 years or so, and I'm still learning, and it goes up and down. Sometimes I feel more in it, and sometimes I feel more out it, but it's just a skill. And if I start to learn it with people, they slowly build up their confidence, and they feel it helps them to jumpstart their inner curiosity. And so it's a lot about just creating a space, creating an environment where there's no judging. It's all about exploring. And like I say, if it takes you 2 months to do a simple thing, whatever simple is, it doesn't matter, because it's all about that journey and showing up and making a conscious decision. Okay, I want to explore something. Okay, here's a dude that I'm connecting with. Let's do this journey together. And we would just, I mean, I'm always learning from my students as much as they learn from me. It's like it's a giving and taking, like any mentorship, right? You always get the same as you give. And it's all about creating that space and creating new perspectives, and it helps people to stop all those voices. The longer they do it, it helps to stop the noise. And even if it's just for 2 minutes a day, 2 minutes of no noise is better than constant noise or constantly being plugged in. Or it's also nice, even if I do it with the mindful ukulele method online, so it's mostly over Zoom. And it's a digital thing, but there's still, like we have a connection. We have a really nice chat with each other. Our phones are somewhere else, and we are plugging into each other. And alone that experience, like for some of my students, I have one student, he's a CEO for a successful company. He works 16 hours every day, and once or twice a week we see each other. And for him, it's just this checking out that somehow keeps him sane, because he has so much on his plate, and it's the decisions he made led to that. But it's just a very pure way of connecting and doing something fun together, and then also learning a skill.
I imagine it's rather like it's the way I see a bath. You know, we take a bath where we soak in a tub, and it's really, you know, you're there to clean yourself, but it's also inherently therapeutic.
Yes, beautiful. That's exactly right? What it is. Yeah.
And so when you pick up, and I see your ukulele behind you in the distance, I hope you'll pick it up.
She's sleeping.
Okay.
I need to be
quiet. I always put people to sleep. But you know, there's that quality of calming the self, and like you say, drowning out all those noises, which, to be honest, in our time, and you reference this, is all synthesized through electronics, which means it's dead energy. There's no life in it whatsoever, and we are consumed with it. You know, whether you're doom scrolling on your mobile or you're online on your laptop or wherever, and you just get lost in time and space disappear with nothing to show for it.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that when you pick up an instrument or you start learning a new skill, right? This is a universal life skill. Music is a universal life skill. We were singing to one another before we spoke to one another. This
exactly.
instrument in your voice box, in your throat, was it's not built for singing or for speaking. It's built for singing. Right? We used to call across great distances. We had to be able to project our voices, a frequency out there saying, hey, they're coming to kick our ass, or hey, we're coming to kick your ass.
Or Henry, practice your piano now.
That's right. Bend your fingers.
I wanna break your fingers.
Exactly.
Yeah, you're totally right. And like that always made me think of something else, of another student, and she learned the ukulele, and then she told me when she was the first time, it was like a family occasion, and we practiced Happy Birthday together for 2 months or so. And it was so meaningful for her to do that in front of her family. And it changed, like it made her like all this effort, because it's sometimes it's hard to learn a new skill, but then when you can show it with your loved ones. Or I did one half a year, I practiced with a guy who was trying, he eventually he played a song on his when he got engaged with his wife. And it was just such a beautiful journey, and being a part of that was very meaningful to me as well, like a very personal thing for someone else, and it's cool to be part of that. And then when he proposed, everything went wrong because he forgot things, but it doesn't matter because he tried it, and he spent half a year just preparing for that. That's just beautiful.
For that moment.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I say this in almost every episode, that the moments matter.
Oh,
right?
yes.
Every aspect of your biography and mine and our parents and their parents and their parents, all the way back to our first common ancestor, right, has led us to this moment, to this conversation, to this meeting. That's important. That's important to
Cherish.
Cherish and recognize the value of the moment.
Sponsorship and listener support of the Lost Traveler podcast benefits the Lost Travelers Club, a volunteer-operated charitable foundation under United Charitable, a 501c3 public charity. Peregrine is the proper noun we now use to describe a parent who endures the loss of their beloved child, forever carrying their memory and embarking on a lifelong journey of grief, resilience, and hope. The Lost Travelers Club provides programs, resources, and empowerment opportunities for peregrines globally who are navigating their grief journey. Parents of child loss, getting there together. You can support this important work by becoming a sponsor of this podcast or visiting www.losttravelers.club for more information or to make a donation. Thanks for listening and for your continued support.
I think a lot of people, and this is over my many, many years as a theater artist, I'm also an international theater director. And that's why I'm in Europe, because I'm establishing a touring company. And I think that in all the years I've been not only acting, but directing and mentoring, teaching, coaching, what I feel, and maybe you can, reflect on this too, is that I think people feel trepidatious about performing in front of other people because it is our natural state, right? It's like standing naked on a stage.
Mm-hmm.
You're vulnerable to attack, you're vulnerable to judgment, you're vulnerable to bullying or whatever, right? I mean, when you are completely in your natural state, you are vulnerable. This is why humans started wearing clothing, because they were vulnerable to the elements and vulnerable to animal attacks and so forth. So I think that music as frequency, right, which we've been using, whether it's been drumming or whether it's been tapping on a stone or vocalizing since the beginning of humanity, is our natural state, and it makes us vulnerable, and then we feel fearful, we feel frightened to perform a sense. And I would love to see people break through that.
Yeah, that's again, for me, it's always about because I have an academic background, so I studied composition on a really good university, and all the things that you get into. Like, I hated music after that, and it took me years to forget everything again, because it's always about
I cannot imagine you hating music ever.
I mean, like, maybe not hating, that's maybe
It's a strong word.
Yeah, but there's always this narrative, okay, this guy did the most amazing thing, and if you don't get there, everything you do is shit. And we have that in our culture. Like, you always can just do things if it's perfect or if it's good. Also, like, social media suggests that to us, that, oh, this is how you have to look like, and if you look like this, don't even bother.
And you have to get 10,000 likes, right? People have to
exactly. And that's what I really try to get out of people's head. So like you said, it's our inherent state. We have this creativity in us. And we need to explore it. Every single person needs to, I mean, that sounds also a bit strong, but I encourage everyone to explore, just explore things, whatever it is. It can be sports, anything, but doing it without judgment and just going for it. And you're always going to find something. You're going to find something out about yourself. You're going to find something out about what it is that you're doing. So it gets you out of your comfort zone, which is always a good place to grow and change things up.
And it's never too late. It's never too late.
Yeah, it's never too late, and it's never going to stop until the moment you stop breathing. That's like my goal. I always want to be slightly out of that comfort zone, because it means, okay, ooh, I'm alive. Oh, I'm feeling the energy. I'm feeling it buzzing. I'm feeling the frequencies.
And we're all going to stop breathing someday.
Yes, exactly.
Do you think about that a lot, at all?
There's
a reason I'm asking you this.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, sometimes you think about that. Or my dad, he's not very well at the moment, and but still, there's always this other side, that energy. And I mean, I'm not a religious person, but I believe in energy. And when we, after our short time on the planet, if our energy will transform into something else. So it's always this circle of energy. And that's what I always think when I think about stopping breathing. It's just, it will transform into something else, whatever that is. Do you know what I mean?
I agree with you. And you know, this is after somebody who's, you know, been through a lot of loss and very, you know, close to me. I don't believe in death anymore. I don't think it's a thing. I think it's an illusion. It's a lie. And it's just a process of transformation into something else. And it's up to us who are still breathing to figure out where that transformation happened, how it happened, and how do I maintain those connections? I really believe that we are capable of connecting, like, you know, I was talking about entanglement theory, of, you know, connecting with the heart of a star on the other side of the universe. I
love
love
the thought of
very
that.
poetic. It's very.
Shadow and Light LLC was established by Dave Roberts and Reverend Patty Farino, co-authors of When the Psychology Professor Met the Minister. Their mission is to empower individuals to transcend life's challenges by integrating spiritual practices with psychology to achieve peace. They are available for individualized spiritual counseling, virtual or in-person book club meetings, or presentations and workshops to universities, organizations, and other interested groups. For further information, visit psychologyprofessorandminister.com.
The reason I bring this up, what I've started doing in this season is I've been asking my co-hosts to ask a question for the next co-host. And my last guest is an end-of-life doula. She ushers people across the threshold, essentially, which I think is so beautiful. And her question for you was, what do you want done with your body when you stop breathing?
Didn't see that coming. Good question.
I know. I say, and then you have to ask a question too. So I'm just planting a seed. We're almost done.
I want to be turned into ashes and spread across a mountain I have in my head in Austria, around where I grew up. Quite clear answer, actually.
Back to the source. Yeah.
Exactly. Back to the source, exactly.
Beautiful. Yeah, I just posted the episode with her, and we were talking about how there are many other ways of dealing with the remains, the shell, if you will, left behind. And it's becoming more and more popular to be ecologically conscious about it. There's water cremation, there's composting, there's, they're
That's
all
a beautiful thought. I like that.
There's
becoming a tree or whatever.
I love that. Plant a seed in my belly and just let me, get something else. I love that kind of a thing. So I think it's a great question that most people think of. Again, there's a fear of being in our natural state and a vulnerability with that. So I'm hoping that, and I think we've achieved some of that in this conversation.
Yeah, totally.
That we've broken through for some of our listeners, given permission, because permission is a very powerful thing. And I do want to talk a little, just for a few seconds about what you were saying about being a professional and the stress that's put on a musician, an artist, to be quote unquote perfect. There are very, very well-known stories of live performers who stopped giving concerts because the pressure was too great. You see a lot of people turning to, drugs and self-destructive behaviors because, especially if they started young, you see a lot of child stars going down that very dark road of self-destruction because the pressures to be perfect are too great and to be held to a standard that is unrealistic.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Glad you brought that up, because I think that's a very big part of the fear.
Yeah.
Of really engaging with what the potential is in music or any art.
Very true.
I can't believe it's already been an hour. I could talk
Jesus,
for hours with you. And we'll have you back for another session. I think.
It would be lovely.
It'd be great to keep the conversation going. And not to put you on the spot, but do you have something that pops into your head for the next co-host?
Okay.
That you would like to know?
Where was the last time you ate a banana, and what did you do afterwards?
When was the last time you ate a banana, and what did you do afterwards?
I hope the person eats bananas.
Yeah, what if they don't eat bananas?
We can
That's
take
your answer.
any fruit. If no bananas, then when did you have your last fruits and what did you do afterwards?
Interesting.
That's my initial question that pops up. Probably I should think of something deeper.
Well, if you had asked me that question,
Yeah.
I would say I don't eat fruit. I'm animal based. And so,
okay, yeah.
so the last time I ate a banana was probably 7 years ago.
There you go. Then you have to think about what you did.
That's right.
You've done them.
You got to remember it. Sense memory.
I have another question, maybe.
Okay.
When was the last time you went out of your comfort zone, and how did you feel about that? Did it feel good or did it feel bad? And did it give you any insight into yourself?
Beautiful. I love that. That will be a very telling response. I hope you'll all tune in to hear the answer. Vinny, this was such a joy, and I feel like I've made a new friend. And
yeah, likewise. Really nice
hoping that we will stay in touch. And I will post a link for your mindful ukulele method.
Yeah, perfect.
Anyone who would like to jump in the pool, as it were, and just play, play, man. Just play, man. All right. Well, we'll talk again very soon. Thanks for spending time.
Bye, Henry.
You've been listening to Season 4 of the Lost Traveler podcast with Henry Cameron Allen. Visit me online at henryallen.org. Thank you to my guests, and thank you for tuning in. Let's keep striving for a better world together.